This is Anne-Marie Leake, Vice President of Communications for ePay Resources. Welcome to the Payment Space.
I'm pleased to welcome Mark Gould, Chief Payments Executive for the Federal Reserve, to the Payment Space podcast brought to you by ePay Resources. This is being recorded live at Notch's Smarter Faster Payments 2024, and I'm your guest host, Peter Davey, the Payments Jedi. Mark, welcome to the show.
Peter, thanks for having me. Great to be here live on the floor.
So, talk to me a little bit about what your role is, especially kind of coming into this now that FedNow is announced. What is your role at the Federal Reserve, and sort of how is the Fed trying to drive the instant payments?
Yeah, so my role is the Chief Payments Executive for the Federal Reserve, which essentially means my group has oversight and management responsibility for the full array of payment services that the Federal Reserve offers. And that's everything from currency and coin to check, ACH, FedWire Securities, and now FedNow, our new instant payment solution. And we have a little under 2,000 people all across the country in all 12 Federal Reserve banks working every day. We provide service to over 9,000 financial institutions, and a typical daily basis, we process somewhere in the neighborhood of $5 trillion through our systems. We're managing $2.3 trillion in U.S. currency in circulation. So that's basically what we do. And our focus really over the past year has been the introduction of FedNow, which went live in July of 2023, and super excited about where we are.
As you guys have been working to drive adoption since July, it's been very impressive. Now over 700 participants on the network. What are some of the key drivers to that growth?
Well, one of the things that we're just really proud of, as you mentioned, is the growth we launched with 35 institutions. And the way that I refer to it is we launched with 35 institutions and big dreams about what might happen next. But you never really know what's going to happen next until you actually go through the process. One thing that I think has been a key driver, really a couple of things. One is a group of really enthusiastic early adopters that we've called the Pioneers of Now. Some of them are featured at our booth here on the floor. They're people that are just so eager to harness the power of instant payments. They love to talk about how they're using them and drive a little bit of FOMO, frankly, in the industry to help spur other people to adopt instant payments. The other thing that has been a real area of focus for us is working with the community of processors, fintechs, and technology providers that support all of the banks in the country. There's over 9,000 banks in the country, from really, really big to incredibly small. And so the processor community and the technology groups that support those banks, that's been a real driver of our success in adoption. We hope to not slow down. That's our goal. We really want to keep this momentum up because our goal is nothing short of ubiquity in the United States.
That's great. So, obviously, as somebody who's been involved in this journey for some time, and like myself, I'm very excited to see the adoption of instant payments. But obviously, the send side is extremely important. How are you guys seeing the send side adoption and some of the new originators coming onto the network?
Yeah, we have over 700 banks on the network. Everyone's receiving and a smaller number are sending. And that's kind of to be expected, I think. I think some banks just want to dip their toe in the water a little bit and see how many payments they receive, see how it works, gain confidence. I think another thing that's happened is not everyone's technology platform was equipped at launch with sending capability. And so that's another thing that's been driving this. And I think a third factor is financial institutions are working with their corporate customers on specific use cases. And that's a real focus for us in the year ahead also. Thinking about specific use cases where instant payments would really benefit corporate customers or consumers. There are a number of use cases out there that I think will start to drive sending volume. But the real key to having send volume is having a robust network in the first place. When I talked on the main stage earlier today, one of the things I said, it's really important that we do these things in order. First, we've really got to build the network, build the number of receive points. Then we can focus on getting additional send volume. And then we need to still stay focused on building out the full features and functionality that we had in mind with FedNow in the first place.
Yeah, obviously, we think about FedNow, and there are other payment schemes that exist within the industry, including same-day ACH, card push. Obviously, those are things that somewhat compete, but also probably somewhat help. as you guys think about your role as a payment system operator, what are you guys doing to help educate people as to the choices that they potentially have, and that how does FedNow then fit into all the choices or myriad of choices in that space?
That's a great point. And, one thing that it's easy for us, we're all payment nerds here at this conference. And so we think in payment terms. Not everybody does. And so, one way I try to relate this when I speak with regular business groups or other people outside the payment space is I'd say that the rise of commercial aviation didn't cause people to stop buying cars. Everybody is still buying plenty of cars. And we're here in Miami. I live in San Francisco. I flew to Miami, but I walk to my next door neighbor and I drive to the grocery store. There's a mode of transportation that's appropriate for every type of trip that you might be making. The same is true in the payments world. I think every payment has an optimal rail, and maybe there's a couple of different rails that it's a close fit for, but I see our responsibility as offering a spectrum of services that provides a solution for each of those specific use cases. I think instant payments are an ideal rail for anything that requires speed, certainty, finality, and irrevocability. Not every application requires that. And so I actually believe that the total number of payments made in the United States is going to grow potentially quite significantly over the next decade. Certainly we'll see movement between rails. Maybe some low-value wires will move to instant payments. Maybe certain ACH payments might move to instant payments. Maybe some things that are handled in cash might move that direction. But I think every rail that we offer is an ideal platform for particular types of payments.
I love the fact that you said that the number of payments will actually increase. It's one of the things that I've been thinking about for some time. I think especially as we get some of the corporate originators on, and especially B2B payments, thinking about bringing those down to single payments for single invoice items as opposed to single payments for multiple invoice items could actually help with the perfection of payments across the industry.
Absolutely. And it's going to lead to a larger number of payments. I mean, another simple example is something like earned wage access, where instead of getting paid twice a month, a worker maybe at a fast food restaurant or a gig worker is getting paid at the end of their shift. So you work for a day and you get paid for that day. And so that could turn into 10 payments in 2 weeks instead of one. I think there's a lot of other situations like that. So personally, I'm quite bullish on the total number of payments. I think that the pie will be expanding even as we see and experience shifts within segments of the pie.
Awesome. So speaking about changes in payment systems, the Federal Reserve is looking to upgrade their wire system to ISO 20022 compliancy by 2025. Pretty big goal. Obviously, a lot of different changes in the industry. So what are some of the things that you guys are doing to help promote that and to help educate people as to what that change looks like?
Well, one thing that we're really focused on right now is communication with the broad array of financial institutions out there on the importance of testing and preparing for this migration to ISO 2002 in March of 2025. There's a fair amount of work involved in getting there. The private sector wire operator, TCH, made this migration just a few weeks ago successfully. The industry asked us not to do this all at the same time, to separate these migrations to just ensure that there was no disruption of any sort. So we're very focused on this. We really want this migration to be successful. So my message, since you're wearing your Payments Jedi shirt, Peter, is do or do not with ISO migration to 2022. There is no try. We really need to do this as an industry. I think the benefits to the industry, leveraging this data-rich capability that exists in the ISO format, I think that's something that people are going to continue exploring and leveraging for many years to come.
And, what do you think the drive will be then as people have to adopt ISO 20022 in the wire space to actually helping to propel things on top of FedNow?
Well, I think ultimately, if you think about where payments originate, that's really where I think we need to start really thinking about. So all of the corporate ERP systems that ultimately wind up feeding our payment networks, there are aspects of data, pieces of data that might feed into the origination of a payment that need to get picked up by the originating bank systems, passed through the operator and picked up by the receiving banks. I think right now what we see with ISO is a lot of that data may start on one end, but it doesn't quite make it all the way through to the other side. I think it's really going to change over the next several years, and I think it's going to be exciting to watch.
At the top of the conversation, you highlighted there's nearly 9,000 financial institutions here in the U.S. We've got 700 right now on FedNow. Obviously, there's a lot of listeners to this podcast that haven't quite made the leap to joining either RTP or the FedNow system or both. What would you leave them with in terms of the opportunities that you're seeing and why they should be making that migration?
I guess my observation, Peter, is that the world is speeding up. It's not slowing down. And you look at every other aspect of our lives, consumers' lives, businesses' lives. None of us like to wait. Everyone pays for TSA pre-check, so they don't need to wait in the long security line. If I did word association on the showroom floor here, and I just asked somebody, when you picture a waiting room, what do you picture? They'd probably say something like dim lights, bad music, and old magazines. I mean, we don't associate good things with waiting. Yet most of the time we find ourselves waiting for money. And I just think that over time is going to change. The world is speeding up. Payments naturally should be speeding up. And I think instant payments is the next step in that evolution.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much, Mark. Really appreciate you being on the podcast. I'm sure our listeners are really going to enjoy this and enjoy the rest of the conference.
Thanks.